Ladies and gentlemen, pay attention. This is your boy, the coach from the WWE. I would like to welcome you to the very first wrestling podcast in the world to take you on a weekly deep dive into classic matches along with legends of the squared circle. Enjoy the discussion. Enjoy the back and forth. There's so much to get into. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Payoff.
Oh, hell yeah. It's an all-new episode of The Payoff. I'm Tom. That's Jeff. Jeff, how in the hell are you doing?
We are deep in the road. Like, it's the next exit. WrestleMania is here tonight. Big night. We got NXT happening, or whenever you're listening to this. But new NXT, 2 nights of NXT, always super exciting. And it's in the air. It's just, you feel it. You know what's going on. Like, it's just, this is our Super Bowl. I'm more excited for this than the Super Bowl this year. So I'm feeling good. If you couldn't tell, it's a big week. I'm excited.
So WrestleMania week is basically now Raw, Hall of Fame, NXT, SmackDown, Night 1, Night 2, Raw, and then it's NXT on Tuesday.
I believe it's moving. We know that. I think
that's on Tuesday. Oh, by the way, you have AEW, you have Impact, and then, I know some people are, I think, maybe having shows in Tampa, but obviously once, WrestleMania is back to normal, hopefully next year, then you'll have like all the, craziness of all the independent shows and everything else happening.
And I can confirm, I was actually looking today because I wanted just the network schedule or the Peacock schedule. There is still a lot of indie wrestling going on. And so props to, if you can get to those shows, like, kudos. But yeah, like, to your point, there is a lot of in-person indie wrestling still happening this WrestleMania week, which is good. Things are coming back. That's what we want.
So imagine what it's going to be like, in future years. I mean, it's just going to, that week. And then, again, imagine like, the conventions and all the shows. And dude, WrestleMania week next year and in future years is just going to be like off the charts crazy in terms of all the things happening.
Did you see that which you and I will be in Texas. So, start marking your calendar. We'll be on the road again. But that it was super sad photo of like Sting signing autographs between like a plexiglass window. And it had like a 6-inch gap underneath the window so that like people could slide pictures to him and he could sign them. Like, it was.
No, I had no idea about this. When was it?
It was super sad. I saw it on Instagram actually this morning, and like somebody was talking about how, like, this is how it has to be and things like that, just because of everything that's happening. But yeah, it's just, I'm excited for things to get a little bit back to normal here. Yep. It's actually on Sting's Instagram. And so,
no. Yeah. Dude, I've spent a lot of money on meet and greets over the years, but dude, you got to shake the Hulkster's hand. You got to look him in the eye. You got to put your arm around them. All those guys, like, I don't want to be talking to Ric Flair through, 6 inches of glass. I want to put my arm around the nation.
You're going to be super sad. I just sent you the photo because, yeah, it's just not the wrestling that, like, it's not what you and I want. Like, after being at Starrcast, especially too, and you and I doing that, like, it's great that he's out there and he's doing this for the fans and like he's, making the rounds. I don't want to put that down at all, but like, you and I both, we're just ready for some normalcy here. Like, let's get back to it. I want to get to a damn wrestling show. Like, so yeah.
I agree. All right.
But this doesn't dampen my spirits. I'm ready.
So before we get down to business and talk about this epic clash at WrestleMania 17, we got to talk a little business first. And so here's the deal. As those of you who are longtime listeners know, Jeff and I do this as a labor of love. We both have obviously full-time gigs, and this is just a fun little project for us. We, bring on some old wrestlers. We talk about old matches. We've had a blast doing this for, almost 2 years now. That being said, we were recently approached by someone that said, hey, we'd like to actually sponsor and support The Payoff. And we immediately said, look, maybe, but we got to actually use the product. We got to check it out. We got to make sure it's legit. And if it checks all those boxes, and, we feel like it's something that we want to share with our listeners and endorse, we're happy to do so. But if not, it's probably just not going to be a good fit for us because, again, this is just something we do for fun. And we both got the product. And the product we're talking about is Manscaped, which I'm sure many of you guys have heard about. Below the waist grooming, creams and ointments. And I mean, it's just amazing what they've done. Now razors, really, really well engineered stuff. And so, in the interest of, and look, this is a total shoot. We're not joking. We're not working around here. Total shoot. I've been grooming myself now for well over a decade. And I've used razors. I've used cheap ones. I've used nice ones. I've used all kinds of different devices, waterproof, whatever. And they all suck. Some of them nick you. Some of them break down. Some of them get clogged up and they never seem to work well. So when I heard about Manscaped, as they've obviously sponsored other podcasts, I just kind of brushed it off. I'm like, yeah, it's probably just another razor. It's probably no better. But recently I got mine in the mail. And I got a really cool package of stuff, a deodorant and an ointment, really, really neat package that they put together. And I said, all right, let me try this thing out. First thing I noticed is really, really well engineered. Okay, so it's small, it's waterproof, it's compact, it just looks cool. Okay, it's got a little light on it. And I used it. And it was so smooth, no nicking, no cutting, no uncomfort at all. And man, it was an awesome, awesome experience. That's my perspective. Jeff, I know you did it as well.
Yeah.
I haven't talked about this yet.
Nope.
Was it as good for you as it was for me?
And Tom and I, we wouldn't be pushing something like this. You're like, oh man, the payout, they're doing sponsorships and ads now. Like, you know what though? Like we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't trust it. And so, yeah, razors are scary. I'll admit that way. As a guy, all guys have been there before. Like, you gotta be so, this product, doing Manscaped and using their products. Like it's one of those, like, it's no longer looking for a stub in a forest or, the tree is there. It's growing. It's fantastic. And so, we all look forward to something like that. And so just all the different stuff. Hey, it's just about taking care of yourself. If the last year has taught us anything, like, have it be your new hobby, taking care of yourself, looking good, no matter where you are, no matter who's seeing it and things like that. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things that, nothing wrong with, pulling out that out. And especially like I am all for in the shower and doing it in the shower. It makes life a million times easier. And so like dudes, and all this, the advertising, Tom and I like talking about this stuff, like it's all funny stuff, but at the same time, like it's taking care of yourself. And that's why, we're bringing kind of, excited to have Manscaped here as one of our sponsors. So, Tom, I think we got a little bit of code here or something though. Finally,
yeah,
like, give something to the listeners.
Yeah. So everyone that listens to Payoff, you can get 20% off anything on the website. Plus you can get free shipping if you use the discount code PAYOFF, PAYOFF. So discount code PAYOFF, you get 20% off and free shipping. So, in terms of below the waist, the lawnmower is the trimmer, right? And so that's what I used. But then I immediately went on the website and I was like, well, what else do they even make? And what I already ordered was the weed whacker. And that's the nose and hair trimmer. Just your ears, your nose, there's some of those areas that, you got to clean up there as well. And again, same deal. I can't wait to get the weed whacker because same deal. I've used some of these cheap ones over the years and they're battery operated or, they get clogged up. And so the weed whacker and the lawnmower, 90-minute battery life, which I got to imagine that's quite a few trims. I don't think you're, doing a 10-minute session each time you trim, at least I hope not. But yeah, dude, awesome stuff. Go to manscaped.com. Check out everything they have. The packages are cool. But even if you just want to try a tool just to check it out, they have razors on there as well. Again, 20% off and free shipping using PAYOFF as your code. Again, I wouldn't be talking about this if it wasn't awesome, and it is. Best one I've ever used by far. Super easy, super well engineered. So manscaped.com, discount code payoff. Can't recommend it highly enough. And now, the reason we're here. Do we even need to talk about why we're covering this match, Jeff?
To be honest,
I mean, these are like two of the biggest stars of all time. This is the best match they ever had. The crowd was incredible. This is the best WrestleMania of all time. I don't know what else to say. Is there anything I could have possibly left out as to why this is such a no-brainer to cover this match?
No, I think the only thing to say is you and I shuffled the schedule so that we could make sure to include this match. Like that is how, like, you and I looking at it, we're like, man, we got all these great matches. And then we're like, holy, like, no, it's WrestleMania week. We're going to drop this episode as well. Like, give them a little bit extra because like we have to talk about this one. When I realized we hadn't yet, I was like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, let's get on this. So no, I say, let's get into it. Let's do this.
All right. It's time for the build.
Oh, it's time for the build.
April 1st, 2001. Dude, so it's like 20 years ago. Time goes so fast, dude. Like, I know, like, when we talk about, like, WrestleMania 3, wow, it was a long time ago, but this was 20 years ago. We're getting old. Life's moving too fast, man. We're at the Astrodome, 68,000, did a buy rate of over 1 million. Dude, this show was just freaking awesome. And we have not covered a match on this card, right?
I'll go back and look. I think our running list, we have a ton of WrestleMania 17 matches. We covered the ladder match, but I think that was it. Like, okay. we've got a lot to cover, though. Yep.
If we covered the hardcore match with Raven,
yes, we did. We actually had Raven. Yeah, so going back, we actually did have Raven on the show. It's been a while, but yes, so covering this one. Yep.
Isn't that crazy that this is now going to be the third match we covered? And we haven't even covered Shane and Vince yet, which, I mean, I think you have to cover it sometime. Oh, and by the way, Undertaker Triple H was a really, really good match too. So again, I'm not going to go through the whole card, but just to highlight, okay, you had the final 5 matches on this card were just off the charts, right? You had Shane and Vince, which it's going to be a killer street fight. And that was the end of that just great Linda and Trish stuff and awesome. Then you had the TLC match, okay, which was incredible. Then you had the Gimmick Battle Royal, which was super, super fun. Go back and watch that. Have some good laughs. Watch all the entrances. And you had Bobby the Brain Heenan and Gene Okerlund on commentary. I mean, come on. And, especially now that they're no longer with us, really, really special. And then the double main event, or the last 2 matches, Taker and Triple H, great match there, kind of brawled all over the place. And then you had Austin Rock, which was just off the charts. So again, dude, this was just such a good show, and the crowd was hot as hell for it. So build-wise, Jeff, I mean, this build really went on for years. I know you're not going to cover everything, but talk about how we get to the rematch of Austin and Rock.
Yeah, and I confused. We covered the year previous TLC match, but yeah, we've got we've got this match. We got a lot of matches to cover from 17, and so yeah, but yeah, so this is one like you kind of said. So how did we get here? We actually had these guys taking each other on. It was WrestleMania 15, going for the WWF Championship, and then that would have been March 1999, a few years before this. Like you said, just a lot of encounters over the years, plain and simple. So you kind of had that going on. And so, but we'll kind of, just fast forward to this, I say this year, 2001, kind of, this portion of what the feud was, what the build was. And so you actually had Stone Cold winning the Royal Rumble 2001, that match in January. He eliminated Kane, which made him the number 1 contender for the WWF Championship. Now you had The Rock. It was just a month later, No Way Out, him beating Kurt Angle. That was February, in order to, at the time, he would would have been the 6-time WWE champion. And so very early in that year, so you got The Rock winning the belt. You've got Austin kind of getting that first spot. Now, how did this storyline kind of come into play? It's one that I got some recommendations for people to go back. The biggest piece of this was, at the time, Austin's actual real life wife, Deborah, getting involved in the storyline. She was managing at the time, some of these people, but being what it was, Vince, even though she was married to Austin at the time, Vince saying that she had to be The Rock's manager, which was The Rock didn't want it. Austin didn't want it. She didn't want it, but Vince gonna Vince. And so, for storyline. And so we kind of getting that angle of that doing that. And so, but because of that, though, Austin saying that if anything happened to her, though, The Rock was responsible and McMahon was responsible. And so kind of, dealing with that. So fast forward a little bit, though, just really a month later, that The Rock was in a match with Kurt Angle, and The Rock was placed in the ankle lock, and the Kurt Angle wouldn't break it. And so Deborah, being The Rock's manager at the time, she went to check on The Rock. I would say go back, watch this clip, because again, like we said, Austin, protect her, nothing should happen to her. She got placed in the ankle lock as well too. So Austin ran to the ring to save her. Now, I'll say this, that when she was first placed in the ankle lock by Kurt Angle, it was a huge pop, like gigantic. And this is, and even I think back to it's one of those episodes where everybody's on their feet, the camera flashes are going off, people are just losing their mind. And so you've got this, and the two of them, him having her locked up. And so just a huge pop because of that. But then you have Austin coming to the ring and hitting, ending up, breaking that, but then also hitting The Rock with a Stone Cold Stunner as a punishment for what happened to her. I didn't think it could get any louder when I was watching this clip. And so you've got this huge pop when the ankle lock happens. And then when Austin coming in for the state, and this is just a peak of who they were, you couldn't go wrong. Gigantic, massive pop. It went up a whole nother level that I didn't expect. And so, kind of playing that and kind of her getting hurt and things like that. So then, of course, as happens, you've got The Rock and, Austin, just a lot of back and forth with some tag teams, things like that. The Rock giving Austin a stunner. It's not a stunner. That's not his finisher. Come on, Jeff. Giving a rock bottom to Austin the next week because of him getting stunned the week previously. And that just kind of happened. And so, and then really just in the lead up to this, you've got Deborah, actually, she was no longer being the manager. McMahon, firing her, if you will, or just relieving her of her duties because of the brawl between Rock and Austin the few previous weeks. And so the match really spawning because you have the number one contender and The Rock has the belt. And so that just makes sense for kind of why that was happening. Now, we haven't really said it this on the card. This is a new no DQ match, but that stipulation, and I kind of went back just to make sure of this, that stipulation wasn't added until these guys were on the way to the ring. And so it didn't make a ton of sense why that was happening. And that was the case, but hey, whatever, it's just the nature of it. Sometimes that's just what you're going to get. And that's what we got. And so you've got Royal Rumble winner, and you've got the champion at the time, which is, WWE history. We know that's kind of what it is. And that just makes sense. And so we get that. And then the no DQ, we're on the way to the ring. And then here we go. It's no DQ. So that's really it. Just kind of, I say a normal build for once for why we're getting this match. And, like you said, they feuded, they'd had lots of matches before, but this one, that's how the story played out.
Yeah, sometimes I think we over book these things. You have two big stars. They don't like each other. They're hyper competitive. They both want to be at the top of the, card. They both want to be the champion. They both want to be the guy. Doesn't have to be more than that. So many of these great feuds, it's just, I'm an alpha male. You're an alpha male. We're going to clash and see who the best is. Don't overthink it, man. But, we add all this hokey bullshit in there from a bunch of, Hollywood rejects that are on the writing team. So here's the deal. WrestleMania 17, we're 3 hours and 7 minutes on the dot into this thing. Now, interestingly enough, it seems, and we'll keep an eye on this, but it seems like the timestamps from the network are also the timestamps on Peacock. So if you're international and still using the network, it should be the same timestamps as if you're using Peacock and you're here in the States. So Austin's just entered the ring. 3 hours, 7 minutes on the dot. WrestleMania 17. Jeff, are you ready?
Let's do this, man.
All right. It's time for the payoff.
Oh, it's time for the payoff.
All right, dude. Austin getting, as you can probably imagine, a absolutely stupid, absurd ovation, looking intense as shit. Same with Rock. And Jeff, as I was saying, dude, let's not overcomplicate this, okay? We just have these two, again, alpha males, both want to be the man, huge mega stars. That's it.
Yeah, and that's what it boils down to. And kind of doing it that way, like you got The Rock coming to the ring now, like it's so many times we forget.
I mean, again, look how intense he looks as well. It's the same deal, right? Like Austin was intense, Rock's intense. He's not posing to the crowd. He's not doing his normal mannerisms. He is just walking straight there, looking intense as hell. Austin looks intense. This is how you lose yourself in wrestling. Okay, you lose yourself here for two reasons. Number one is it's being presented as a legitimate heavyweight fight. Okay. Yep. If you were watching UFC or you were watching boxing, this is how they would enter the ring, right? Yeah. This is how they would walk down. They both look intense. They'd both be ready for a fight. There'd be nothing hokey, no smiling, staring each other down. Okay. These guys legitimately, I don't want to say didn't like each other, but there was a healthy competition. They both wanted to be the best, the best man in the industry, regardless of title. They wanted to both be the man. Okay. The other reason we care so much about this, Jeff, is because we cared so much about the characters, right? Steve Austin, The Rock is The Rock. And that's one of the issues I see with today's product is, and here we go. Boom.
Right out of the gate. Yep.
Right out of the gate. Yeah, this is great. So the other issue, again, is around the fact that no DQ, so Austin's just going to hit him with the title. The other issue with today is you look at the guys today, and I blame this so much on the fact that, WWE is so focused on quote unquote the brand, right? And it's like the NFL with the Shield.
Shield, yeah.
Why are certain games in the NFL, why do they have monster ratings? Well, some of it has to do with bigger markets, right? New York versus Jacksonville. But all of these pro sports leagues, their ratings and their popularity are driven on stars. Okay, why was the NBA so hot in the early 90s? Michael Jordan. Okay, Jordan retires, the league suffers, right? Nobody cares about Nets and Spurs in the finals. It's the same thing with wrestling, where I know that they want to protect the brand. I know they want to make it bigger than any one star. I know they don't want to be held up if a guy leaves the company. I get all that, and I get the strategy behind it. But again, why is the NFL so popular? Well, because people want to see Tom Brady. Some love Tom Brady, some hate Tom Brady, but they wanted to see him in the Super Bowl. And against Mahomes, young kid, awesome athlete. Like, people get glued to that. And so again, this is why this is so special here, because it's these two titanic characters. We don't have that now. I'd argue the closest you have to like anything resembling this is probably Roman Reigns, but do you really care that much? I don't know, but he's probably the biggest star that you have. Lesnar is maybe a bigger star, but he's not around as much, right? I mean, you just don't have that. And so I think that, you're missing mega stars. And I know they're not easy to create, but Cena, Hogan, Rock, Austin, like there's only a handful of guys, but without one, it's so tough because there's so many guys you could book with Austin or with The Rock, and it elevated them. That's how Kurt Angle became such a big star. That's how Triple H became a star. That's how Mick Foley became a bigger star, is because of being around these guys. And there is no the guy in wrestling right now. I'd argue in any North American promotion.
Well, and I kind of wonder, some of the matches that we've got upcoming this weekend, it's just one of those things where, like, am I that excited for, Drew? And, I just don't know. Like, and so the other thing, okay, so Roman, Edge, and Daniel Bryan, you figure that's, right now it's scheduled for your night 2, probably main event, things like that. But I go into it thinking, and I want to stay positive, but like Roman's going to win, like, and that nobody wants Roman to win. It's that vicious cycle. And I talk like, well, wrestling fans are just, we're never happy, what we want, and because that's the other thing is, and even my shoot job, I was having this conversation of, what, okay, we know what we don't want, but do we know what we do want? Okay, so just taking that match, for example, and you have that one, who is like, who do you really want to win that one? Do you want it to be like, yes, do I want Daniel Bryan? Sure, but like, is he going to have a long run? I don't know. Like that piece of it's hard to say. And like this match, and we'll talk about it in the aftermath. Like The Rock was leaving for a little bit to shoot a movie after this, but we didn't know that at the time. And so, it's to have these two guys just continually feuding, from every angle on the outside, it made perfect sense. And these guys, so they were in the crowd now, they're back in the ring. Like it just made sense. But I'm to your larger point of like building stars, like they're not like, and we've talked about this for weeks. Of like just kind of why these things happen and what do they need to do to build stars. Like you and I've talked about that a lot. Like part of it is them not letting it happen organically, like accepting like The Rock and Austin were your biggest stars because the fans made them that way. Like Roman is not like they're piping in the cheers and stuff like that. Like there's been reports over the year or like with Thunderdome of like them telling the fans to boo Randy Orton. It's like, okay, like I'm going to probably boo Randy Orton no matter what, if you make his character someone that I want to boo. Like, it's like the TV audience. And I feel like the old applause, like light, like, time to boo, time to cheer, like things like that. Like, that's just, it's almost insulting our intelligence. Like we don't need that. Like we haven't watched the product for 20 plus years because we need to be told what to like or not, like plain and simple, or who to like.
I follow obviously the business side of wrestling very closely. I don't, and I understand like back when live crowds were, a big part of things. So, I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is in this era right now, I don't understand why they try to outsmart the fans sometimes. Like just, focus on the guys the fans like. Who do the fans get behind? Who do the fans like? Who do the fans support? I would really focus on them versus, you trying to outsmart everyone.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, is these guys are kind of flying around in the ring. I know they're outside right now, but as they were flying around in the ring, dude, you forget. I mean, Austin was a hell of a worker. The Rock, in this time frame was great in the ring too. And they were just both such great athletes and so quick, and they could brawl and they could wrestle in the ring and they moved quickly, and they weren't heavyweights. They were just, bigger guys that, I mean, it was, they were just, I love this style. Right.
Is Rock bleeding? I can't tell.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's bleeding.
Okay. Because I thought the getting the blade, like it was very poorly choreographed. Like it was, you could see every step of him getting the blade, hiding it, stuff like that. And so that was.
Well, I didn't remember that, but the Rock just fell through the table before they could even break it.
Yeah. Good job there. Yeah. Well, and to your point, just about the larger, like letting the fans, like, I think the best example of that is Rusev. Like, like Rusev Day, the fans got that over. Like that was such a big part of it. And then now he's gone. Like, and he's still kind of, mid-tier at AEW, but I think he's at least doing a little bit more than he was, at WWE getting shit on all the time.
Well, dude, I'll tell you. I mean, I think one of their bigger blunders ever was not putting Rusev over Cena, whatever WrestleMania that was, where he came out with the tank. I mean, it's like, what are you doing?
Well, and you figure, like, how do you not? Like, he came out in a fucking tank, like, and we remember that, but like, we don't remember, and that he lost. Like, how do you do, like, it maybe, telegraphing it a little bit, like, but to give someone like that giant entrance and then they lose, it's like, what the hell? Like, and some people, it's obvious who they're trying to make stars. Like, I've been a fan of Bianca Belair, like, she's like meteoric, like how quickly she's like now, main eventing a women's match in WrestleMania. But and you kind of see that. Oh, we forgot to one of the turnbuckle pads is off, and so Austin went for it again. This new no DQ stipulation, so just kind of looming there right now, kind of doing that. So topic of this week, we obviously had the Hall of Fame this week as well too. A lot of changes to the class. Oh, I bought a rock bleeding at that point. We know Batista, backed out, saying movie commitments and there, just other plans kind of come up, and so was not a part of this class. And so, you and I talked briefly off the air about how do we fix the Hall of Fame? Like it gets that, you even have like past wrestlers saying like it's not an actual Hall of Fame. Like, how do you fix it? Do you have thoughts? I know I do.
I mean, I'd like for there to be a physical Hall of Fame, just even for the optics of it. I mean, it would just be nice that, hey, you're actually being inducted into something other than your picture being put on the website. I would like that. They've probably been a little too generous in terms of who they've put in. I mean, they view it as, we're putting on a TV event, we're putting on a live event, so we need fans to pay to attend. And I get all that, but I wish it was a little bit more exclusive. I think there's years where, and I've probably brought this up before, but the year that Ric Flair got inducted, why not just make the entire night a tribute to Ric Flair? And so you would have had like 8 induction speeches, and then Flair would have come out. But you would have had these different perspectives where Arn could have talked about the Four Horsemen, and Steamboat could have talked about their classic matches, and Triple H and Shawn Michaels could have come and talked about him late in his career. And you see, you'd have these different people. I mean, you couldn't do it every year, but you do it for Austin, you do it for The Rock, you do it for Taker, you do it for Hogan. I just wish that's the way I would have handled it. So I don't like the fact that it's just some of these guys just get rushed. Some of the guys probably don't deserve to be in. So again, overall, I'd like for there to be something physical. And then again, what are you going to do at this point? You really can't put the toothpaste back in the bottle. So we're just going to, a lot of people are going to get into it. You're going to have 8 a year. I didn't like this year them doing a second class. I just thought that was kind of stupid. But
yeah,
anyways, those are my thoughts. Anything else you would?
Yeah, I think that I'm with you on like a physical something. I think there almost has to be if they're going to, do something like, add on to it, like kind of showing it off, things like that. Rock hitting Austin with the belt. We got both men bleeding now. I think that's a big part of this. I think too, like there's just no, I say like standard practice of who gets in and who doesn't. Baseball, they've got so many years or things like that. And if you want to make it like more, okay, if you're going to go sports entertainment, like, okay, pick the guy who's got a movie coming out this year. Like, yeah. And there's always some of that, like, picking, Kane and running for mayor again, like, does this give it a little bit more publicity? And maybe, I could be totally off base with that too, but that's part of it. I feel like that was him being announced was very late. Like Kane should be a huge announcement, but then they just kind of drop it in with the great Khali, like what, and not to shoot down the great Khali, but like, it's one of those, like, how do you just like put like a random press release or tweet out, or it was on like, before the bump or whatever it is, or after the bump of just like, or after the bell, whatever of, oh, by the way, Kane is getting inducted and Batista's not. Like, what? oh, hang on, like he is a Hall of Famer. It's not like he just doesn't get inducted. Like what? So I like that piece of it. And then I think there should be a fan component. I think that it's kind of one that like it's so much fan interaction. Like I talk a lot. Everybody knows this on the show of like the Cyber Sunday or Taboo Tuesday and like that kind of fan vote and things like that. Like give us 6 names and let us vote who we think should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, and lie to us. I don't even care. Like, just at least let us think that we're being involved somehow and able to put this out there, because right now, like, it does feel, and I have been to a Hall of Fame ceremony. Have you?
Yeah. I think 5 of them.
Okay. And so, well, so I've been to one. Okay.
You got me at least. I mean, I'm trying to think. I was, Shawn Michaels' year, because my buddy that I was with was joking like, "Hey, don't cry. And I'm like, fuck off.
Shawn Michaels, yeah.
But Shawn's, okay, so I was definitely at Shawn's, which was, that was cool. Flair's, I was definitely at. The one Ted DiBiase was in, it wasn't a good class, but I was at that one. And I know I was at a couple others too. Anyways, I remember Sting's, whatever year that was. So yeah, I think I've been to like 5 of them. I mean, they're cool to attend, Angles. They're kind of cool to attend and stuff. I always enjoy them. The ticket is usually pretty reasonable. It's not like you need to have great tickets. You just kind of want to be in there and, be able to watch everything, but I've always enjoyed them.
Well, and the one I went to, it's like, it was 2007. So Dusty Rhodes, Mr. Perfect. It was weird because it was Jerry the King Lawler and like Jim Ross. Like, so it was just, it's Dusty. So that's, your big name on the card there. But yeah, it was not a huge, great class. And so, but same thing. I think I remember it was at the Fox Theater in Detroit. It was like a nicer thing. Like even at the time, like I wasn't sure, like some people had like jeans and a wrestling t-shirt on. I remember I went with like khakis because I wasn't sure what to expect.
They stopped doing it, but they used to like put on the ticket that you must wear like a collared shirt or something.
It was a dress code. Yes. Yeah. I forgot about that, but I think that's a big part. Yeah.
And then you'd have people that were like in suits, and then you'd have people that were in wrestling t-shirts.
Well, and then you see it now, like it's sad, like some of the photos, because yes, after 5 hours of sitting there, like everybody's cleared out, because that's the other thing. Like the wrestlers got to wrestle the next night. Like it's not a slow week for them. It's the biggest week of their career. And so to say, hey, by the way, you got to sit in an auditorium in a tux for, or an evening gown for 4 to 5, probably more than that hours after off camera stuff. Like it's too much. Like, and I get that. And so I don't know, do you do like video vignettes throughout like every week and then record Austin starting to get the Crimson Mask there? Not as bad as we've seen before, but, give them 30 minutes and then put that stuff out on the network, like have it be like special like that, or like, do videos like, we all know. And you and I talk about that. They've got some of the best video production in anywhere. And so to not utilize that just doesn't make a ton of sense. So you got Rock now. Oh, go ahead.
No, Rock going for the sharpshooter. I mean, it's just a hell of a match, dude. These guys. So
it's been nonstop. Yeah.
Not nonstop. I mean, nonstop at all. And God, Rock was
great shot. Both
really
guys
bleeding.
Just,
wow! I didn't even
crazy.
realize I didn't even realize the the parallels of Austin in a sharpshooter bleeding
with Brett.
Wow. I never even thought about that. That's
Rock just sitting on it. Yep.
And he's doing the same thing he did.
Same exact. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Talk about a throwback there. Yeah.
Never remembered that from this match. Wow. And I mean, again, these guys are just so intense. I mean, this is like, it's a fight. I mean,
that was great. The Rock just yelling, "Fuck you" in the middle of the ring. Yeah. Oh boy.
Austin, so these two to me, like, there's just some guys that when you put them together, it's magic. And I think it's a pretty short list. I mean, when you just think of like 2 guys face to face, the way they contrast. And I mean, to me, I'm thinking like Hogan, Warrior.
Yep. That was the first one that came to my mind. Yep.
Austin, Rock. Okay. Maybe even like Hogan, Savage. Maybe like Shawn and Taker, right? I mean, but there's just a handful of matchups that, again, I mean, just whole different level, mega stars. I mean, this is just it's this rivalry. Again, it's up there. If someone said this was their favorite rivalry of all time, you can't argue it. I mean, it's certainly up there.
And now Austin has Rock and the sharpshooter, like kind of flipping the script here. Yeah, I'm with you. I think like Undertaker Kane would be another one. Undertaker Mankind, like, Kurt Angle, pick a competitor. I know Verboten, but like Chris Benoit, some of the matches he had, like, all of those. Yeah, I'm with you. And it's almost funny because you called this a rivalry. Like, I'm almost wondering, is there a better word for it? Because like, these guys, like, yes, they had a years long kind of rivalry, but like at what point is it not like, I almost feel like there should be something better to call it, because a rivalry doesn't do it justice. And I feel like, they had a couple matches and it was a rivalry. Like, no, this was multi-year. These guys back and forth, like, or 3-4 WrestleManias, they were main eventing this stuff. Like,
well, what makes this so unique is, depending on how you rank guys, I mean, because there's the best wrestlers and there's the best characters and there's the best talkers. I mean, in terms of biggest stars, these two kind of have to be on your Mount Rushmore, right? I mean, isn't it like the two of them and Hogan, and maybe you're going to put Cena on there, right? Like, I mean, biggest stars ever. And so to your point about how this is bigger than a rivalry, I mean, you're talking 2 of the 5 biggest stars ever, arguably 2 of the top 3 or 4. Okay. And these guys were in their prime. Their careers almost completely mirrored each other in terms of their time in the WWE, right? They both come in around like 95, 96. They're both hitting their stride, maybe Austin a touch quicker, but, and then they're both kind of out of the business by 19, Rock to make movies, Austin because of his neck. So you had this window of, whatever, call it 4 or 5 years, where the two, not just biggest stars of a generation, but in history, were there. So this competition, I mean, there's almost nothing like it. It would have maybe been, again, there's no parallel to it per se. I mean, Taker stuck around a long time after Michaels, obviously. You had Hogan that, he was there before and after Warrior, obviously. Again, it's tough to really find a parallel. But again, imagine if you had some of these rematches. I mean, that's the problem with, one of the things I wish we would have got back in the day was, where was the second Hogan Savage match? Where was the third match, right? Like that's part of what makes this rivalry so great is, they had other matches, but they had this trilogy at WrestleMania. And I think Vince was so against rematches, but look how great this was. Like, there was no better match to have during this era than these two a second time. And then the third one was awesome too for its own reasons. So, it's like more recently why, like how they blew this whole Edge Orton thing and never gave you a third match in the trilogy. Why not just hold on to it? Why blow it off on Raw? I don't understand. And so, you wonder, you're like, gosh, and again, different era, I get all that, but it's like WrestleMania 6, you got that Hogan Warrior, gosh, what if there would have been a rematch? What if Hogan would have been the heel in a rematch? What if there would have been a third match? What if SummerSlam's the rematch and then the third match is going to be, at WrestleMania 7. So anyways, I just, that's another thing that makes this so special. So Vince McMahon coming to the ring, Vince lost to his son, Shane, was humiliated earlier, obviously no DQ. Vince is still in his ring gear.
Looking jacked, walking to the ring. Yeah. Both guys still bleeding. Yeah. The Rock hit a stunner just a minute ago, but unable to make the pin. Vince looking pissed with the cutoff though. Like, it's funny too, to think now, like how we know what these guys look like nowadays. Vince is bigger now. The Rock is twice the size. Like, twice. Yep. Austin is more jacked too. Like, like these guys still like, get on their workout regimen. When you're doing it every day, it's just different. So big spine buster. Yeah. From the Rock and Austin.
Austin's arms are bigger now than they were in this match. If you watch on his podcast, they're just, I mean, okay. So let me ask you this quickly. Fantasy booking, like who would the Austin match be with if he had one more in him?
Oh my gosh. I don't even,
I mean, I think the one that I wanted was him and Punk, just when Punk was in his prime. I'm like, gosh, that, like that would have been just off the charts. I mean, the promos and everything, but
so,
like now I don't even know what you would do, because it's like, there's no current star that I think like you'd want him in there with. The Lesnar thing, it just doesn't feel like it would make sense. But I mean, I guess maybe Lesnar.
You don't need him to put somebody over. Like,
No,
he doesn't need to, God, I would not come back. Like, even the Saudi money doing something like that, I don't think that'll ever even happen. Like, going for the people's elbow here, The Rock. And Michaels has since said, or Triple H said, I think it was Michaels that said, like, they should have never come back for that match. And so now you got, so to answer your question, you got Vince kind of getting involved in the match now. Every fan is on their feet. That's the thing, because I have so many questions about, like, shouldn't go out on his back. Like, he doesn't need to put anybody over. Like, Brock doesn't need anybody to, he doesn't need to beat Austin to be Brock. It's like, I think it's great that he comes back and gives stunners occasionally. It's all he needs. Like, do you need the Fiend to get over somehow? Like, because you've botched that so hard in the rollout, maybe, I don't know. Like, and so The Rock chasing Vince, The Rock running into a rock bottom now from Austin. They've not done their own finishers, but they've done each other's finishers to each other. So
this is where the match goes sideways, and we'll talk about it, in our reviews. But what's Vince doing? Why is he involved? Why is he helping Austin of all people? The other interesting thing too is, Rock and Rock and Vince with their stare down. Those are probably the two best facial reaction guys in the history of the business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so, ref bump. There we go. Sorry, Earl, getting knocked to the outside. I'm sitting here racking my brain too. It's like, I honestly, like, he shouldn't ever come back. Like, you get some beers, kind of, and there's a low blow from Austin. Have him give some stunners here and there too. Like, occasionally giving one to Shane or Vince or something like that. But I think even Austin knows, like, when a good thing's over, like, don't do it anymore. So Austin calling Vince into the ring. Vince has a chair and nobody knows what's kind of going to happen here.
This Vince interference is worse than I even remember it. Like, just in terms of logic and
teeing up The Rock. Here we go. The Rock, yep, blocking the chair shot. Well, putting his hand up to block it, but Vince taking a chair shot.
Yep. Vince is clearly helping Austin. There's nobody there to make the count.
Yep, Vince going to save Earl.
WrestleMania 19. Would it have been better if we knew it was Austin's last match?
Maybe. Like, that's the thing. It's like, getting that true retirement moment.
I wish he would have said something, because we just didn't appreciate it at the time. I wish it would have been like, hey, this is my last ride, win or lose, and there's no one I'd rather go out against than this guy, and I want to beat him one final time. I wish we would have known that, because I've gone back and watched that match and the vignettes and everything. You just didn't know it was his last match, and it's a shame. I wish we would have.
And it's one, and I think part of it though is we're so conditioned to, like, and a rock bottom as Austin's going for the chair shot. Like, I say, we're so conditioned for the salmon jacket and the twist. I feel like that, just part of wrestling, unfortunately, of, like, we just don't always know what we're going to get, even with a retirement. And you and I have talked about it on the show before. Retirement doesn't mean retiring in wrestling. Like, that's just not a thing. And so, people are back and they're having matches and stuff like that. And so, it was Austin, one of the last wrestlers to have a true in-ring retirement. Like, we're going to know, we didn't know necessarily, but, like, he hasn't been back for a true match since.
Yep.
And so that's why I think it's so hard. Like, we're just conditioned to be like, even if they told us it's his last match, we know, like, it may not be. And so that's why I kind of struggle with, what do you do? So you got these guys just kind of kicking out, like, really superhumanly at this point. Vince giving the chair to The Rock, or giving the chair to Austin. Again, Rock trying to pull himself up. We got Earl back in the ring. And here comes the direct chair shots. Yep. So trying to get it 1, 2 and kick out again, every fan on their feet. And so if you notice in the crowd, some of the fans are even starting to like shrug, like, what the hell? I noticed there's one guy in a white shirt that kind of like threw up like a what? And so, like even the fans kind of unsure of what's happening at this point. And so Austin flipping off the ref. Yeah. It's I feel like we'll talk about it. Like you said, we're starting to drag a little bit here.
Yeah, we're dragging. There's still a big pop at the end of this match. I mean, everyone's on their feet, but it's just like, what's going on? Beating the hell out of The Rock with the chair. Again, it just didn't make sense. And I guess
shots, yep.
Well, here you go. Here's the pin. 2, 3. There you go.
Finally gets it.
Look at the reaction though. Look at the people.
Wow. Yep. Every single fan popped hard.
Even though it was a convoluted, weird end, and it just kind of ended with chair shots. Like, look how over Austin was. That's what I want you to take away from this match. And everyone's like, well, it was Houston. Well, whatever. I mean, he was popular in Chicago too. I mean, the guy was just over. So now he's going to stare at Vince. They're going to shake hands.
There you go.
There you go. All right, let's get into the aftermath.
Ho! It's time for the aftermath.
Initial thoughts.
I said it at the very end there. I remember the match, but it just by the end there, I was kind of like, I'm ready for it to be over. Like, it didn't make a ton of sense by the time we were getting to the end. And so we needed, just something. It worked, but we just needed something a little different. Yep. How about you? It was still a good match before that, though. Credit where credit's due. Yeah.
Well, I'll get into it afterwards. I'll tell you this. I think if you remove Vince from the equation, you play it straight with Austin Rock, and Austin wins clean in the middle of the ring, it would go down as one of, if not the best matches in WrestleMania history.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree. And so
that's how good this match was and would have been.
So what happened? Like, let's just get into it. Like, kind of what happened here. And so you've got The Rock kicking out of the stunner, McMahon handing him the steel chair, hitting The Rock, just really just revealing that Austin and McMahon now kind of working together. And so hitting him, over a dozen times with the chair, either, to the head or just kind of while he's down on the mat and just kind of hitting each other. And so Austin becoming the new champ at this point. So, and of course you've got, Austin and Vince kind of shaking hands as the show goes off the air. So the next night though, the two of them had a rematch. Actually, it was a steel cage match, but you had Triple H getting involved in this one. Him teasing, kind of going against Austin, but then turning on The Rock at the end of the match. And so, kind of having to deal with that. And so now you've got Austin, Triple H, McMahon really forging an alliance to go after The Rock. Now you had the Triple H and Austin actually, with the tag team belts as well too. They had beating Kane and Undertaker at Backlash the following pay-per-view. So you really had them with the trifecta here of Austin as the WWF champ. You had Triple H as the Intercontinental champ, and then you also had them as the tag champs. And so just a little bit, a month later or so, though, you had Triple H losing the Intercontinental belt. You had them then losing the tag belts as well too. This was the match, or one of the many times I feel like Triple H, hurting himself legitimately, kind of tearing his quadricep. And they had planned on kind of losing the match, but they kind of had to adjust a little bit and things like that because your storyline got screwed up after that. And so Austin, losing the belt at that point. And so The Rock though, they're losing the tag belt. So, but then you have The Rock though leaving at this point because of everything that happened. He ended up like getting a suspension. It was actually because he left to go film the cinema classic, The Scorpion King, as we all know, just that fantastic piece of art. And so we get, had to watch that and, deal with that. And so, but then him coming back, this is when too, you've got the team WWE over, team WCW, ECW. And so him kind of fighting that. And then, him taking on Booker T as well too at SummerSlam and the WCW championship. And so it just got a little weird at that point, I say, just because of like kind of what was happening is what involved. But then again, you had 19, like you said, and then these guys eventually facing each other once more, with The Rock winning that match. And so, yeah, to your point about, how do you treat it? Who knows in retrospect of 2020. But yeah, that's really for them aftermath. Tom, you got thoughts? I know you're ready to just talk about the match. You want me to just get right into the reviews? You ready to do this? Yeah.
Get into the reviews.
So this was, and we've talked about, I went and looked real quick. So we've covered 2 matches from this WrestleMania. We still have 4 more that we want to talk about. And so we will figure out what's going on with that. But, things to look forward to over the next year, but, when we get back on the road. But this is listed consistently as like one of the best WrestleManias ever. That, you had Stone Cold number 2 on the PWI. You had The Rock at number 14 on the PWI list. The match of the year was actually not. We've covered the previous WrestleMania ladder match. This WrestleMania match for the TLC that you had, that was considered the match of the year on this one. And so again, getting into Meltzer and kind of what he said, he awarded this was the best major show for 2001. And then kind of what he said, much like the fantasy of WrestleMania 3, which was the high peak of the 1980s wrestling boom at the Silverdome, this show 14 years later was all around greatest major wrestling show the World Wrestling Federation ever produced. The big story in the ring was the Steve Austin heel turn, which went ignored by the live crowd in Houston, which was largely there to cheer Austin to the WWF title by any means necessary. That included working heel style from the start and gaining the title due to lots of help from Vince McMahon, including a handshake and a beer drinking toast. The Astrodome crowd largely ignored that McMahon was even there, only seeing Austin winning the title. It was very interesting because the crowd watching on television, led by the announcer's reaction, no doubt reacted completely different than the fans in the building as shown on Raw the next night while still in Texas. The Austin turn had been on the books for months. Months ago, it seemed natural due to the ascension of the younger Rock, who had eclipsed Austin's mainstream popularity. As for the match, hot pace early, the vast majority of the crowd cheered Austin. You couldn't hear any boos for Austin even when he did the full-fledged turn. There were some cheers for Rock, but the boos would quickly overwhelm the cheers. Fans still cheered Austin, and after they left, The Rock finally recovered. He was still being booed. 4.5 stars. 411 Mania, just one that, it kind of pulled this one up. I've been referencing them a little bit more as we continue to do the show, just to give more reviews. That the 2 biggest stars in all of wrestling and the main event of WrestleMania, it really is all you can ask for. The pop for Austin was out of this world. This got off to an incredible start. Austin and Rock traded blows as soon as Rock got done posing with the title. This set the tone for a war. It took several chair shots and Stone Cold Stunners before Austin had done enough to win the title in 2806. Outstanding match. They put on arguably the best WrestleMania main event in history, 4 3/4 stars. So your boy gave it 4.5. We got 411 giving it 4 3/4. Tom, I know you want to talk and you got a feeling on this or opinion on this, so go for it.
Yeah, I mean, look, our payoff score is based on the build, the match, the aftermath, right? And the build to this, multiple years, the vignette, like the promo video they played before this match was arguably the best ever. The match prior to McMahon interfering was absurdly good. The crowd was one of the hottest crowds for any match in the history of wrestling. And then the aftermath. I mean, they had one more match. They finished off the trilogy. It was Austin's final match ever. Everything about this is perfect except for the final 3 minutes of the match or 5 minutes, the finish of this match. So overall, I'm going to give this a 9. I'm like 8.5, 9. I'll give it a 9. But if, like I said, if you had a better finish, play it straight, Austin wins in the middle of the ring, this is a 10. It's one of, if not the greatest matches in the history of WrestleMania. And so they were this close. And because they overbooked it, because they tried to turn Austin heel, because they involved McMahon, they ruined what, again, may very well have been the greatest match in the history of WrestleMania. What about you?
I'm glad you said your score without Vince, because I was going to ask you that. So you're saying you're at about a 9.
I'm at a 9. Without Vince, it's a 10.
And I would actually agree with you on that. I'm going to give it an 8 or 8.5. Because I'm for the same reasons. I think you have to, yes, we could fantasy book. It didn't happen, but it did. And so I think, I have to stick with an 8.5. I think that and I said it, cause even like that last 7-8 minutes, even I was like, okay, enough. Like, this is just, I imagine, we watched it. I say quote live, at least sitting here, it's been a while. Like, I would have been annoyed if that was like something that was happening even today or this week, when we get WrestleMania and stuff like that, of just like the dragging on and stuff like that. Sometimes and you and I do it too. Like, and I do it with my buddies too. Like, we're like, okay, enough. Like, the Edge Orton match kind of had that previously too, of like, God, like, okay, like how much longer is this going to go on? Triple H, we all know Triple H puts on some of the longest matches ever at WrestleMania. Comes back and has this one match, and that kind of happens. And so, yeah, I just think that had you knocked off a little bit of that, I'd give it a higher mark. But agreeing to your point, like previous to that, though, if you take strictly the in-ring work, even the no DQ stipulation wasn't overdone. It wasn't overdone. It wasn't overbooked, but the Vince piece of it was like, that made a ton of sense too, just kind of doing it that way. So yeah, 8.5 for a multitude of reasons for both of us, but yeah, but I was still sports entertained. It's hard not to be when you got these guys in the ring.
Agreed. It was fun. So, I mean, again, it was close to perfect, and it was just a unforced error by Vince and whoever else was making the decisions to overbook this. Try Austin as a heel. Guy wasn't a heel. Never going to be a heel.
Yeah, especially in Texas. Like, it's just not. Yeah,
wasn't going to happen.
It happens, but okay. Good stuff. I know, of course, social media, it's a busy week. And so lots of social media out there. I hope you guys enjoy this kind of bonus episode, just one we kind of had to talk about, but at Payoff Pod, like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Tom, I know we got a deal for the listeners too. You want to remind them one more time what we got out there for our new sponsor?
Yeah, go to manscaped.com, buy whatever you want, get it for 20% off, and get free shipping if you use the coupon code payoff on manscaped.com. And again, the nose trimmer, dude, I'm getting it. I haven't tried it yet, so I'll keep everyone posted on that. But they have great stuff. And again, just super, super well engineered. I've probably tried, 5, 6, 7 different products like it. That haven't come close, and frankly have been more expensive in some cases too. So I hope you enjoy it. Support them, but don't do it for us. Do it for yourself, because it's really good shit. Straight up. So
it's like they say, it's about feeling good, and as they say, unlock your confidence and use the right tools, and that's with Manscaped. Plain and simple. Get the job done.
All right. Well, this was a fun episode. Enjoy WrestleMania. Stay safe out there. And as always, thank you for joining us on The Payoff.